Can you hear me, everyone? Is the audio coming through? How are you all? I've not been talking much today, so my vocal cords are fried. I was just saying, don't worry, everyone. I was just saying I'm lonely in the chat because I'm guest free again, and I don't know. Sometimes I feel particularly when I'm. Well, you'll see what's happening next week. Yeah, it just feels particularly empty. But as soon as you lot are in the chat, I soon don't feel like I'm on my onesie. Hello. Wait a minute. Tell you what I can do. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? I whizzed out for a bit of a cycle just before, so you're pleased to know I'm clean and drinking out of my really scaggy cycle bottle. Don't worry about all the weird grey stuff building up in the mouthpiece. That's fine. It's good. It's strengthening. Anyway, lovely job. Oh well, it's gonna be. We're harking back to sing a bit for your vocal cords. Yeah, I know. I just need to knock out a couple of bass notes, and I'll see my lower range is not there at the moment. The host is the other me. Yeah, that's it. It's gonna be a relaxed Rail Natter tonight. We're going back to our Rail Natter roots. So whilst the theme is very much part 2 of the Crayonista series, there's no plan for tonight's one other than we'll do some of it, and I'll talk through what I'm doing, and we'll maybe learn. You might do some suggestions, you might ask questions, but basically ask me all your questions. Last time I rushed through a bit, and we didn't have too many questions. This time it's going to be a free for all. Ask your many questions. But first, the news. So what is in the news? Yeah, boat got stuck. Everyone knew that I was going to mention Suez. A big old boat got stuck in the Suez Canal, exposing the fragility, but also how lean our supply chains are globally. There's not really much to say about that other than it was funny. Twitter was enjoyable while this was happening, and it's quite a new ship, and it got somewhat nudged into the side. Gareth Williams didn't have a chance to catch up on part 1. Well then, it's all right. We're going to cover some of what we looked through in part 1. We went into some detail about curve design and stuff in part 1, but we'll run through that momentarily. Don't worry, Gareth. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. I'm sorry. I'm responding to things in the chat that are referring to 10 minutes ago. That's fine. Let's crack on. So that's the news. There's nothing more to report on that, to be honest. The Tesla twit is back. Hooray! Ella, thank you very much indeed for pointing this nonsense out to me. Good grief. So for all those people, just this is like an ultimate test of the Tesla versus the Bitcoin cultists, or the Musk versus the Bitcoin cultists, rather. Bitcoin is stupid, basically evil and nonsense. I've yet to see blockchain is also total nonsense. I've never heard a single. In fact, I've only heard one applicable use case, and even that ended up sounding like potentially it could be exploited, and that was for people to create NFTs out of dick pics. For women particularly to use NFTs to create dick pics, and then the man who sends the nasty photo has to buy it back at high cost. Other than that, I've heard not a single useful use of blockchain and Bitcoin, other than just to waste a huge amount of resources. And so obviously, if we're talking about wasting resources and things that seem like a good idea, if you're basically quite simple, Elon Musk obviously is all about it. So, you can now buy a Tesla with Bitcoin. So, fantastic. What a waste of human skin. Next. Ooh, this is loud.
Since October, we've finished the South Portal civil works, and we've started the TBM assembly, as you can see behind me. We've got various activities going on. The tunnel boring machine is comprised of hundreds of parts, moving parts as well. effectively it's like a massive moving factory, and we won't see it again once it's in there until the other side. The entire excavation process is approximately 3 years. Once the TBM is fully operational, I'll be a TBM engineer, so I'll be responsible for looking after the day-to-day running of the machine. So that would involve various parts from ring building to looking after the general running of the machine and the machine guidance. As you can see behind me, we've got a couple of cranes assembling both of the machines. They're getting ready to bore underneath the Chiltern Hills, and that's where the journey will start. It's very exciting. You see every day it changes here. Yeah, really lucky to be part of this and seeing it grow from very early stages to where we are now.
Oh, that was jazzy. Crikey. Now I can do this and also just let that disappear. Yeah, don't forget HS2 is a thing. I just spotted the video and I thought it's worth, I just spotted it on YouTube, downloaded it straight off YouTube, and dumped it in here because I thought it was worth, it's quite interesting. It's just interesting to sort of have a look at this, just remind ourselves that it's actually progressing. Yeah, the TBM actually puts tunnel panels in the wall as well. That's how TBMs have worked for a long time now. They actually put the panels in the precast. Oh, you can't see me. You've got big face. They put the precast panels in, and they actually push back on those precast panels to actually hydraulically drive the TBM forwards. There are loads of good videos of how that works. I think Crossrail have some really nice working videos of how that. In fact, I'm pretty sure I've posted some from when they dug out when they extended the actually even earlier than that. I think when they were digging the Victoria line, they were using hydraulically pushed. Oh no, they weren't, because it was cast iron at that point. Still, it was still an older grey head shield. Anyway, there's loads of. If you just search TBM on YouTube, there's loads of videos showing how they work. Oh, the other thing, of course, is that HS2 is not like it's slipping in terms of program and cost and program, frankly. And the reason for that is because of the total lack of energy in it from government. When government actually engages with something, it can push it forwards and things can happen. If there's just constant belligerence and nitpicking and scope change, the reason that the project is delayed is because it keeps getting fiddled with. Ministers are coming in and fiddling and playing and going, oh, crop that, or can you make that different, or can we reduce the costs of this? It's like, no. It's designed to deliver a thing, a purpose. Get on with it. Every time you fiddle with it, you delay it and increase the cost, likely offsetting or at least mitigating any minor capital expenditure benefits from tweaking and fiddling. So just bloody well get on with it. Stop mucking around with it. Anyway, that's all very cheery. Let's. Oh yeah, right. That's enough of the news. Yes, Crayonista, noun. One who performs strategic transport planning with a box of coloured crayons, using them to draw lines on a map without thinking through the implications. This is the traditional meaning of Crayonista that hopefully you're all familiar with from last time, but I thought I'd redefine it again to remind us all. So Crayonistaing is generally not a good thing, but it can be quite fun so long as you follow some rules. And I'm going to remind you of those rules, the 7 top tips of me. When we get cracking through the episode. But yeah, I thought I'd open by reminding us what the definition is. In any case, let's crack on. Let's get on with it. Welcome to tonight's Rail Natter, everyone. That should definitely be episode 54. In any case. The Intercity 225, fading away, looking wonderful. Yeah, so we're going to remind ourselves what we covered in part 1. Is it a real word, or have I just made it up? Asked Matt Reed. No, Crayonistaing is definitely a thing that's been around. I think the rail forums are where the phrase was first termed. The term was first coined, rather. Yeah, I think. I think it quite nice and neatly describes this. It describes this process, and it can be a force for good. It can be a force for problems. I think we talked a bit about that in the first one, but we can run over some crap. Continue to ask your questions. But I thought we'd run through the rules that we went through. So part 1, we kind of came up with 7 top tips. Those top tips were: number 1, think about what it is for. So it is not if the reason you're wanting the railway to be there is because, oh, there used to be a railway there, that's not a good enough reason to start getting your crayons out. That's not in and of itself a good enough reason. It really isn't. You have to think about, is it because there's some dense bit of population that's lacking a railway? Is it because, for example, the Scottish Greens with their 5,000... Oh, let's get my little face up as well. Hello, I'm up in the corner again. Like, for example, the Scottish Greens who said population of 5,000 or more requires a railway connection. So follow a logic, follow a methodology, but don't go, because I want there to be a railway there, or, because there's a nice gap, I think a railway would be nice there. No, it has to have a purpose. It has to make strategic sense. Because we have limited resources, much as I go on about the fact that capital expenditure is not something to limit us by, we do have limited, as I say, you could write a blank check tomorrow, and we'd still not be delivering the work much quicker than now, because without a strategic vision, you can't ramp up the supply chain, people, equipment, so on, and you can't deliver things much quicker. So number one, think about what it is for. Number two, think about what it is for again. The chances are you need to really, are you absolutely sure that that this cannot be done better with a bus, cannot be done better with, a new railway station on an existing line, cannot be, there are lots of options to think about. It's just, don't start scribbling because there's a bit of railway line you fancy reopening. Anyway, there we are. Number three. Don't just reuse old alignments. Yeah, this is a key rule. Don't just dive into going straight for new for old alignments. And when we're going to do we're going to do a new bit of Crayonista completely from scratch. I've not prepared this at all tonight, because I think maybe if I'm talking through it, what I'm thinking about, that'll maybe give you a chance to sort of see what goes through my brain, and maybe it'll make you think, oh no, he's not doing that right, or maybe you'll think, oh yeah, that's quite sensible. Oh, I can see what you've done there. So So don't just reuse old alignments. Don't just bulldoze everything. Don't just kind of ignore the fact that there are things, habitats, residences, all this stuff. Actually think about what you're going through. At an early stage, go for ideally minimizing any sort of obvious habitat loss. But then if you're going to kind of get serious with your Crayonista, you might want to go into the, Natural England and download some of the GIS data sets and actually look at where those habitats are and start dodging things like triple SIs, SACs, ancient woodlands, blah, blah, blah. Number 5, mimic real railway geometry. Don't do weird, massive compound curves. Don't do massive, long, shallow curves that are just totally unrealistic. Railway geometry is formed of straights and regular curves. So ideally, do that, and don't do really steep. Don't have a huge long straight, then a really sharp kink, and then another long straight, because that's just not how that works. So as best as you can, mimic real railway geometry. Number 6 was, if you remember to slap a cost on it, use big numbers. So I think we said 20 million a single track kilometre and 20 million a station were our big rule of thumb numbers. And number 7 was, don't do anything fancy. Don't start thinking, we're going to have cut and cover there, or we're going to have it on an elevated guide thing. Don't do anything silly or fancy at the early stage. You can, when the engineering starts, then you can do fancy things. But at the beginning, when you're doing Crayonista, assume, pig iron and blunt objects. When you're doing, because this is super high level, so assuming that you can do something fancy when you haven't got a detailed topographical survey in front of you you're kidding yourself. Those are our top 7 tips. What else? Oh yeah, this is me. This is a quote from the Woodhead episode, which I'd recommend you go and watch, because that's kind of relevant to this as well. Which is, just because closing a railway was a bad idea doesn't mean reopening is a good idea. It's a kind of a thing to always keep in your mind in these such circumstances. No, I haven't mentioned beaching yet. Oh, but I have now. So there you are. If anyone's got that on your bingo, you're sorted. Right, so let's get cracking with part 2. And what we're going to do first is, actually, we're going to possibly embarrassingly pick out a couple of my old Crayonista lines. We're going to start with some of the Transpennine links. And in order to do this, I'm going to whiz over to Google Earth. Any questions here? Do tourist locations like Stonehenge justify stations even without population? They can do if they're part of a wider railway. You wouldn't just build a spur railway to go to Stonehenge, because you've got to kind of think operationally as well. So you can't just build so and we're going to come to this when we're looking at the Wetherby railway that we're going to use for the Crayonista test at the end of this. But you've got to think about the operational model as well. You've got to think about, right, what trains currently run, and can we divert, if they're 4 an hour, can we divert 1 or 2 of those along this new alignment? Or okay, can we introduce a new service? If we introduce a new service, where is it going to fit? How congested are the lines that it's having to fit onto? You've got to think about, these are fairly easy things to think about. It's not, you don't have to be a timetable modeler to do it. It's just have a little thing. If you're going to do some Crayonista, think of at least a vaguely viable and sensible operational model. I'll talk about kind of how that looks shortly. So transpennine links, let's do this. Here is Britain. And here is the island of Ireland, but generally we're going to be. I'm going to focus on this place here. This is Great Britain. There's Scotland. There's Wales. There's this bizarrely shaped, strange and hyper-nationalist thing that's getting more and more nuts as the years go by. Let's have a look at what we're going to do. Let's get HS2 up. There we are. There's HS2, and I made this orange, didn't I? Yeah. Well, I'll leave it orange for now because that's fine. I think people wanted to look at this. Then the ECML rerouting. Oh, while I'm at it, I'll also get the existing railway network up as well. So it's not actually. Let's get it up in black, so it's a bit easier to see. And just gonna. Oh, let me just make this all the same. Yeah, there we go. Just to make that a bit easier. Glorious. So let us. Oh, the other thing. Let me just have a quick look at whether did I have. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Sorry, I'm just trying to think of some other bits and pieces. So earlier, if you remember last time, we were looking at transpennine links, and we were looking at links across. So I was actually looking at, where is it? If I need to now find it, don't I? I think it was in. It'll be an existing. It's in here, and I've been in here for a while, folks, which is why I'm trying to remember where I put these things. Upgrades and additions, North Pennine Mainline. I think if I click, have I got it in here? I'm sure I do. It's somewhere here. Oh, here we go. Yeah, lovely. There we go. Yeah, marvelous. So last time I think we looked at this, and we looked at this alignment, and I kind of talked through a bit about what I was considering and how it would work and blah blah blah. But we're not going to look at that one. We're now going to look at, and people are requesting this on Twitter, so that's fine. We're going to do that, which is to actually look at the transpennine. And maybe I will make it a different color so you can see what's unofficial and what is official. So let's just make this. What color am I going to make it? Let's just make it. I think I made it orange, didn't I? Stuff it. Let's make it orange again. FF6600. Railnet are orange. So we know what's going on. Marvellous. So, sorry I'm waffling. Black isn't easier to... So I've chosen black because the whole point is that I don't want that to be too easy to see because it's... I think actually the existing tracks are there as well anyway. I want the black to be not too easy to see so that it's kind of obvious what's new and what's existing. So first of all, we've got HS2 here, which the alignments, I think of the little tweaks, bits of tweaks here and there. These are now the 2016 alignments, so they're slightly out of date. I think even there, because I think my bit of design down at Calvert is now won't have been incorporated into this. I actually slightly changed the curvature through here. So that's not Crayonista, by the way. That's IRL actual day job stuff. So that's not included in this centre lines. But anyway, you can see lots of glorious stuff, like, for example, Delta Junction down here, looking awesome. The railway into Curzon Street. There's Curzon Street over here. You can actually see some of the progress they've been making. Oh, the roundhouse is now officially on Google Earth. That's cool. Nice. Anyway, I digress. This is going to be so digressy. I'm so sorry. Is this existing map of the railway network available to you? Well, it's just Google Earth. You can get the existing railway map off Google Earth. I can make the link to the. I do have a KML file with the existing railway network in it, but it's not that up to date, to be honest. So I'd recommend finding it somewhere else. But there's definitely one in there's one in Google Earth anyway. Right. So have I tried QGIS for this at any stage? I need to start learning QGIS for some of the things I've got planned for later this year. So it is something I need to do. Yes. Right. So, I mean, I'm trying to work out where to start. Should we start in Leeds? So, in fact, let's not start in Leeds. So, this orange line it was me Crayonista, and some of it is probably going to be not great because this was done. I did this Crayonista quite a long time ago. Right, there's lots of questions. I'm going to answer all of these. So, Detour is asking, having mentioned cut and cover, what's the deepest they typically go before a bored tunnel will be more realistic? That's a very good question. It does depend on ground conditions, but like 20 meters is a reasonable rule of thumb, I think. That's normally what I'd say is a kind of a fairly rough guide. There's some data in actually in the HS2 documentation. I think you can download and have a look, and it kind of gives a rough guide of that. Michael C is asking about that. If you're in Canada, they make us bore things about 6 inches below road level for reasons. Lol. There we go. Neil Quinn's saying about 20 meters, but it depends on ground conditions. It's much easier to dig big holes nowadays than 100 years ago. Yeah, it's quite a lot easier to bore a tunnel now with modern TBMs than it used to be. Really quick and like relatively speaking. Right. So Matt Reed, you ask a very good question. This orange line is my proposal for Northern Powerhouse Rail or High Speed 3, sometimes very stupidly and incorrectly called Crossrail of the North, but that's precisely isn't what it is. It's the opposite of that. This is high speed segregation across the Pennines, connecting Liverpool towards Hull. Now, I'm going to go from. Where am I going to go from? I'm going to go from east to west is what I'm going to do. So we're going to start down here. This is the line to Hull is quite straight. So if you electrify it, and it doesn't have as much traffic, if you electrify it, I reckoned that you could probably get away without needing additional high-speed segregation, and you can get a decent service. What I did say was essentially providing a bypass of Selby, which is what I did here. And it's probably not particularly... So I designed this to be a 160-mile-an-hour railway. It's a 160-mile-an-hour railway, so the curvature all enables 160 miles an hour apart from where it doesn't, where it's, as with any railway, sometimes you can't go as fast as you want to, you can't keep at line speed, you reduce the speed because you've got particular constraints to deal with. So what am I bulldozing when I come around here? Stuff and things, and this is a pretty high level, nothing special. It's snazzy, isn't it? What on earth is that? Bizarre looking park. Anyway, Selby, this is all floodplain, so this would be quite visible, unavoidably visible. You'd probably have a lot of it on this bit, particularly be on stilts. This is all very, very soggy ground, so it'd be quite interesting. But anyway, that's that. Then you see that I'm broadly following the existing alignment, and whether it would be using the existing tracks or whether it would be paralleling, I don't know. This was just a centerline alignment, so I hadn't put a tremendous amount of thought in it. But this, if you're interested, by the way, this is not particularly from Leeds towards Liverpool. This is not far off what the actual Northern Powerhouse Rail plans are, apart from a few tweaks in Bradford and Warrington. Anyway, so coming through the old connection of across the, so here's the Selby diversion. So going past the Selby diversion, then whizzing off up here around the bottom of Sherburn. So coming off before South Milford, nice little reversing curve, and then connecting up with HS2. And now my proposals would be, this is what I think would happen. So this is where I get Crayonista, but reasonably sensible is exploiting this junction on the M1 to have an east of Leeds Parkway station connecting, which essentially provides you an X. So if I go up and show you what the diversion up here is, you imagine this actually enables a bit of a sort of a cross shape, and you can have so I would put a parkway station here, a large parkway station, and yes, it would have a car park, but it would also be tied into some of the kind of the local transport networks on this side of Leeds, because it would enable you to have people coming from, making connections all sorts of places. Connection on the M1, yeah, useful. We can't see your mouse. Oh, of course you can't see my mouse. Wait a minute, I can change that. Let me do this. Properties. Capture cursor. There we are. Can you see my mouse now? Hooray! Yeah, you can. Good. That'll help. Just remind me to switch that off later. For curves, is the super elevation different between high-speed rail and mixed-use line? Yes, it is. So with high-speed rail, dedicated high-speed rail, when you have single types of traffic, you can apply more super elevation because you haven't got mixed traffic, slower trains, and you've got a more predictable timetable where things are not going to be stopping for signals by and large. Most things are going to be flighted straight through because you have an optimized timetable. You've got William Barter on it or whatever. you can optimize that cant, so you'll generally be aiming for higher cants and lower cant deficiencies on a high speed line, but not necessarily dramatically, because there are still benefits to having reasonable cant efficiency. If you don't know what I'm talking about with cant and cant efficiency, head to either the part 1 of this episode, I think, which was however many months ago, or go to the Permanent Way series on YouTube, where I explain what cant and cant efficiency are. So head in there. Roaming Adcrat, thanks very much. That was a very useful prompt. Would parkway stations be good places for freight terminals? So yeah, no, this would be passenger only. However, it's the sort of thing where you could build in additional infrastructure if you were going to create some sort of freight thing. But actually, no. Generally, for this parkway station, it would be passenger only. You'd be aiming for a passenger only interconnection, and you'd probably, so you've got a nice long space for platforms. You'd probably then rise one over the other, and this again is something I think which is a real plan for HS2 and the connection to Northern Powerhouse Rail, which is being developed, which is essentially a flying junction, a connection between the new HS2 alignment, which is here in white, and the line coming out of Crossgates past the old Vickers factory where they build tanks, coming out of Crossgates and bypassing stupid Garforth with its horrible reverse curves. Which is a good thing, because it means Garforth gets a better railway service. They can start having a more like a suburban railway service style, rather than dealing with all of the Transpennine trains that go through without stopping, and indeed all the other trains that go through without stopping. All of those intercity trains that come along on their way between York and Leeds that just stop. They massively obliterate capacity, ability to run local services through Garforth East, Garforth, and Garforth Central, which may or may not ever appear here. Possibly, we'll find out. That's another one of my designs. Spoiler alert. Also Micklefield. Basically, so you'll bypass all that. The point of this orange line, the point of this Transpennine line, and this is what Northern Powerhouse Rail is about, is what you do is take every single Transpennine Express service and put it on the new line and make them fast trains, make them high-speed trains. And then what's left, you run in a much more, maybe not an entirely metroified style system and service provision, but what you do is essentially all those lines along through Leeds and out, and we'll see them more going the other direction. All of those lines, you can start running them with much higher frequencies, because you don't have to worry about flighting trains through it at full speed to get through to Manchester at high speed, or Manchester Airport at high speed. They can all run on the dedicated lines, and then the existing lines then start running better as suburban high frequency services, but also you can squeeze a bit more freight in there as well. Right, anyway. Remember to at me in if you have queries, because there's lots of chat. Good stuff. Hello. Garforth isn't stupid. No, it's not really stupid. It's a challenging bit of geometry. I was trying to get 110 miles an hour through here, and let me tell you, I was pushing the design limits right to their extremes. Very tricky bit of alignment through here. Also, I was asked to show what happens when you put 125 mile an hour alignment in here, and let me just say, these houses were not surviving, and neither were these. So 125 is impossible, even with pushing the deficiency limits right up to their extreme ends. Anyway, right, so at this point you get back onto the existing alignment, which there is space to 4-track this. So there is space actually to 4-track along here. There is not space, so through Crossgates you can theoretically, with a road reconstruction, you can probably get you can probably turn this into a 4-track station where you've got kind of flanking platforms. There is space for all that. Where there isn't, so you can say, and the curvature's not too, it's not too bad. You'd need to realign through Neville Hill, because at the moment the alignment, you've got a straight with 2 curves at either end, and that just doesn't give you the speed. So if you're wanting to increase speed, then what you want to do is have a nice single curve that goes through Neville Hill, and beyond Neville Hill, coming into Leeds. Much as everyone says they want Marsh Lane Viaduct to be quadrupled, it's not necessary to do that, because there aren't any stations. You can sort of slot everything in, and you just aim for a really high. You just re-signal this so that everything's going through at really high density. So you'd rely on either conventional or signaling or ETCS to basically conveyor belt trains through here. So you don't necessarily need it to be 4-tracked. Potentially causes more problems than it solves 4-tracking, so long as you can get your platform allocation right in Leeds. If you can get your platform allocation right, then then you can flight stuff through here. It pulls into the correct platform and gets out in where the lines are more complicated and disappearing off in all directions. On the other side, this is where you need to open out capacity. You need more lines. So you can get stuff flighted through Leeds on east of Leeds if you've got platform allocation right, and then you've unlocked all the bottlenecks west of Leeds Station. So that's key. Anyway, right. So then what you do from here is, well, a variety of things. So my proposals would look to, well, I've got a couple of things. What have I got going on here? So this is the connection. And again, I think this connection is going to actually exist as a result of HS2. So HS2 are going to build a flying junction onto the Castleford lines. That'll come around and it will allow Northern Powerhouse Rail services to use HS2 between Sheffield and Leeds. It'll allow some of those services. And the plan, I think, is, I don't know quite what that curvature is, because that looks to me to be bulldozing some listed buildings, so I don't quite know whether that curvature is quite right, but in any case it's going to be broadly sitting on there. I think it'll probably actually sit close to the existing Castleford line alignments. Anyway, the other thing that exists, which has got some orange in it but you can't see because of the 3D aerial shots, is this viaduct here that everyone wants to turn into a garden, except it's not a good idea to turn into a garden, because actually it's a pair of lines that you could use. Now, if you're not going to Bradford, so you can see if I zoom out, you can see the orange curve there going round. If you're not going to Bradford, which I wasn't in my version of this alignment, I wasn't including Bradford. Wasn't the Metro plan anticipating more stations between Leeds and Crossgates? No, it wasn't actually, James P. It was acknowledging that corridor is full and saying that it can't do anything on the existing track alignment through there. It's saying that it's not possible to do that. Anyway, so my alignment is through here. It's exploiting the... What's this viaduct called again, everyone? Who on here? Sarah, are you on watching this? Is it... Yeah, what's the name of this viaduct? I can't blinking remember. Leeds Garden Viaduct. Viaduct Garden. What is it? Holbeck Viaduct. That's the one. Holbeck Viaduct. That's what that is. Currently empty, but neatly kind of traverses over the Castleford lines. It still has extant bridges, although you need to replace all of these bridges because these look like long. What are they? Yeah, that looks like a long timber bridge. Also, the track is actually still there, which is quite interesting according to this, which is probably pretty recent. Anyway, there you go. So you've got formation there. Then I start freestyling. So at this point, I'm then going through industrial area and compulsory purchasing things. But industrial land, much as people get pissed off when you bulldoze their industrial land, the land is fairly cheap. And so long as you can relocate people, it's not the end of the world. So industrial land, that's okay for kiboshing. Its name is Fred. Thank you, Gareth Williams. Holbeck, Buchergroys, thank you very much indeed. It is Holbeck Viaduct. Ella, do you add ETCS to the bingo? You can if you want. Anyway, right, what are we doing? So, briefly, kind of coming next to and paralleling the existing line towards, that's the existing Huddersfield line, so it's kind of going through Cottingley and then down into kind of Morley and then through Morley Tunnel. There's Morley Tunnel. But we're splitting off at this point. So this is slightly annoying that it's cutting through the land. I could turn terrain off, I suppose, but anyway. I think you're sort of seeing what's going on. If I zoom out a bit, you can sort of... There you are. I think this is a bit rubbish if I zoom out a bit. Let me just... let me do something here. Let me just... 10 metres relative to ground. There we are. And then extend path to ground. Is that going to work? Let me just have a look if that's done any better. No, not particularly. Anyway, you can sort of see what's going on. If I do... Yeah, that's sort of fine. I mean, I've just extended path to ground. This is not necessarily because everything's on a viaduct. It now looks like it's all on stilts, but it isn't necessarily. Anyway, cutting through there. Now, what I did at this point is there's a mixture of trying to follow the M62, because to try and minimise, as a transport corridor, you kind of want to minimise how much sterile land you create. So whenever you're putting a bit of something next to a bit of linear transport infrastructure next to another piece of linear transport infrastructure, you're creating sterile land. So all this land here between the railway and the motorway is sort of sterilised. By sterilised, I mean more difficult to sort of access, and so it can end up... And actually, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because you can... what you can actually achieve is using it as habitat. So you can actually use it to sterilise the land and stop it being turned to agriculture. You can actually buy that land and turn it into habitat. So there are potentially opportunities, and that's certainly what you'd hope to do here. Let's have a look at the alignment down, zooming in here. So you can see here, nice curve. Ignore the ground profile. What would be nice is if I didn't follow the ground profile. The trouble is it disappears into the ground if I do that. Anyway, you can sort of see what's going on. Horizontally, this is fine. Vertically, it's nonsense because you don't design vertical alignments when you're doing Crayonista. You just ignore the vertical and pretend that everything's fine. So there's a nice straight. You can see at this point we're starting to pick up speed, so going through this industrial land, kiboshing some industry. My guess might be that they bore through there. Actually, this alignment I think is pretty close to what Northern Powerhouse Rail will pick. Oh, or is it though? Oh no, it's not, because they've decided they're going to go into Bradford. So actually, they're probably going to whiz off up here somewhere. They're probably going to try. The trouble is, going to Bradford means that you have to deal with a lot of additional. You can see that on the route to Bradford, you've got some green space, but there's a lot of urban area you've got to work your way through. So, and I think they're going to be putting a station somewhere like here. I think somewhere in the St James Centre, something like that. They're kind of moving the central business district south a bit from this bit of Bradford. Anyway, I digress again. Let's go back to our alignment. So we're whizzing along the M62. This is quite a skewed crossing. So again, I'd be guessing that you might bore, or you might you probably certainly for a shallow skew angle like that, you're probably going to box tunnel it. But you can't for road crossings. You can assume box tunnel. So basically, where you have lots of individual segments over the railway. It's not like a traditional bridge over. You're not going to have a big long span. You essentially create like box tunnel, and the railway sort of works its way through that structure. Then you can see we're essentially following the M62 alignment through here. So I was trying my best to. So there's some compulsory purchase and or tunnel boring going on. Don't give us stuff about golf courses. There's some challenges. Again, people get angry about chopping this wood down, even though it's essentially just plantation that happened with the M62 getting put in. So again, we're following through here and minimizing. What time is it? Oh crikey, this whizzing along time-wise. Anyway, whizzing along here, I need to say less about this. This will be a big old viaduct through here. That'll be, and I expect to see that'll get shouted about a lot when they're, but probably less than in the Chilterns, frankly. That'll go through here. Then we're climbing up towards the summit. So at this point it's quite a steep gradient, I'd imagine, on the vertical. Again, we're trying to utilize the existing M62 corridor, but you can see this is a really good example of where this is only 160 miles an hour, and actually this is pretty shallow, so probably it's a bit faster. But you see how bendy motorways are. So whenever people say, is a boxy sort of tunnely thing how the Bermondsey Dive Under works? Yes, Ella, that's precisely how it works. Yep. Berlin Wall was brilliant for city centre habitat. Yeah. Could the sterile land be used to push safe cycle routes between the towns and eco-friendly side projects? Certainly so, yeah. But my argument would be you should build a whole road next to this new railway, and that whole road should then become a kind of a mixed use, because it's nice and wide. It can be safe mixed use walking cycling path. Anyway, you can see the curvature of the railway compared to the motorway. You just can't. When people say, well, why are the HS2 people not saying you can dig up a motorway and put a railway on that? Well, it's because of this. Have fun getting a railway that goes fast on that alignment. And the faster railway means that it's more efficient. You need fewer trains, and fewer. The whole thing costs less. And also, in the case of HS2, it's 3 main lines for the price of 1. So where are we getting? We're reaching we're kind of really climbing now. At this point, we're cutting along next to the motorway, and then we split away from the M62. So the M62 climbs up over the summit. Goes over that bit where it's really windy over the reservoir, where it's the motorway forms the dam for the reservoir. And then at this point, it's tunnely time. So either you're going to be climbing and then tunneling the summit, or depending on what you do, or you might base tunnel it where you might stay a bit lower, but actually by this point you're pretty high elevation anyway. So through here in tunnel form, and then cutting into the north of Manchester. Let me go north-south again. I keep managing to split it off. So just so everyone gets their bearings. Back connecting with the M62. At the M60 junction, then whizzing southwards, tying in with the existing... now, what bloody line is this? I don't know the Manchester lines that well. Mills Hill and Moston. What lines are these? Oh, it's the old. So we are joining up with the old route, the old Lancashire and Yorkshire alignment. So that's going up towards Todmorden, I think, isn't it? So what's that? That is Castleton, and then Rochdale, Smithy Bridge, Littleborough, and then that'll go up to Summit Tunnel, and yeah, so that's Walsden, then Todmorden, and okay, so, and then round the top to Hebden Bridge and Mytholmroyd, and yeah. Okay, so that's that bit of railway. The new alignment would come in and parallel that. It would, certainly in my eyes, there's enough space for a you'd squeeze a 4-track alignment in, and actually there's the form of 4-track alignment through here. So it was 4-track railway, because you don't want to be mixing that traffic, because you'd undermine all the benefit of the segregation if you start putting these tracks. If you start second placing the existing kind of mixed traffic. Why are motorways so bendy though? Because cars going at 70 miles an hour can be much more bendy than railways. Stevie and Selby, that's the Rochdale line. Thanks. Calder Valley, yeah. Does anyone live on those hills you're tunnelling under? Would a deep station ever be appropriate on an east-west line? No, it definitely wouldn't. There's zero population through there. You just wouldn't bother. Put a tunnel through, nice and simple. No need for it at all. The whole point of this is also that you're not building. You don't, for this railway line, you do not want to put any additional stations on it. The point is that it's unlocking capacity in the existing line, so you don't want any additional stations. You want this to take all the existing stuff. If you want extra stations up here, then you need extra railway lines, or you need to plumb them into the existing lines, or far better actually is bus feed onto the existing railway lines. Oh my god, it's 20 to. We're gonna have to do episode 3 because this is ending up being. Talking about existing railway lines my old plans rather than designing new ones. Maybe that's what we'll have to do. Episode 3 will be Wetherby connections. Right, this is the fun bit. We're into Manchester now. So, coming into Manchester, at this point, you're going to use some of the land here to portal up the Northern Paris Rail. It's going to go underground, so it's going underground. Now, what it does through Piccadilly is TBC. My preference would be that you have this what I've done here is probably not what's going to end up happening. I think they're going to end up doing this slightly weird. They're going to end up doing this slightly weird S thing, and in fact they definitely are, because they're planning to use that. They're planning to use the existing HS2 alignment to then connect over to Leeds, which is like okay, fair enough, but I'm just find out if I've got the. I think I might. Where is it? Northern Rail upgrades. Yeah. If I click this, none of you are about to see this. None of you can see this, so don't pay attention to this. Hopefully it's not going to crash Google Earth. There's quite a lot of alignment, I think, in here. Bear with me a sec. Yeah, so what they're planning to do is they're going to come in and then curve around and then come around and then use this. They're going to use this alignment, and they're going to come up through Warrington like this, and then there's going to be a station in Warrington as well, which is fair enough, because this is kind of like a halfway house. It's not quite HS2. You're going to have slightly more frequent. You can probably have slightly more frequent stops than HS2 does. It's like a step down in terms of segregation, so the speeds will be maybe slightly slower. The average speed's slightly slower, so you can squeeze in a few more stations without it being a problem. So there's going to be a Bank Quay interchange, I think, for the real Northern Paris Rail, and they're going to do this S thing here, which will all be tunnelled, and then it'll whiz up. You can see you can see the Northern Paris Rail alignments, the Transport for the North alignments. That I'm going to get shouted at so much for showing you these. I can't remember where I got them, to be honest. They're whizzing up this way. They're doing that. But you can sort of see where my options not that far off, actually. You can not that far off what they've proposed. Anyway, it's enough of that. I'm already in trouble for showing you that. And yes, it would be an underground station. It would be underground platforms in unavoidably going to be underground platforms in Piccadilly, I think, no matter how it ends up being. So I think the whole of the approach to... from me, it then starts being like, well, why are you doing the funny S shape? Just straighten it off. It doesn't need to be the funny S shape. But anyway, we'll see what the integrated rail plan comes up with, the IRP, later this year. Whether they say that this S thing is stupid if the whole lot's going to be tunnelled and it's going to be a through station. Anyway, my preference would be to actually have the HS2 do its thing. I mean, the HS2 is stupid, generally stupid, because I think that we're bedding in past stupid choices. My preference would be that HS2's main alignment would come up here, would whiz through Manchester and would continue northwards on its own alignment and then connect to the West Coast Main Line. Because why are we embedding the stupidity of the fact the West Coast Main Line does neither meeting Merseyside or Manchester? Put Manchester on the through tracks heading northwards. Anyway, you know, HS2 is far from perfect, but it's fitted into a world of small minds and limited remits, unfortunately. Abolish the treasury. Anyway, so my fanciful route then whizzes off on a fairly straight alignment. This would be potentially some of this, because it's industrial, you could have out and about, but I think a lot of it would be tunnelled. I think you'd have quite a long urban tunnel, kind of whizzing out, following the existing railway alignment-ish. And then what did I do? Then I skirt back and join the motorway again. So I'm joining the motorway down towards Warrington. What's this? This is the 56, right? Down towards Warrington, where I would have, and this is not dissimilar to what's going to be happening on for HS2, because they're going to have a flying junction here to allow the HS2 trains to whiz off towards Liverpool. Unless it gets kiboshed. You know, it could get kiboshed. The NIC got rid of it. Stupid NIC. So yeah, actually they don't show it. They don't show it there. Because these are old alignments, I think the plan is already been adjusted to put a cord in to allow HS2 trains to whiz off towards Liverpool. Anyway, my proposals would come in over the top of Warrington and not bother with the station. Just like I ignored Bradford. I'd change that now. I think I would include Bradford. You know, I would include Bradford and Warrington. Having seen the overall operational model, it does make sense to connect Bradford into Northern Powerhouse Rail, just as it does with Warrington. So anyway, coming in, and then essentially taking a new alignment, because the lines into Liverpool Lime Street are super congested and could be better used as a sort of metro style services, you know, expanding Merseyrail, frankly, and also expanding Merseyrail, but also having like S-train style services between the centres as well. Some of the stations along here that are just uselessly underserved. Well, what's Lee Green? What's the other one? Rainhill, Whitson. What's the one that I often use when? Oh yeah, it's. No, it's not Padgate. It's Birchwood. So the Arcadis office, my day job, the Warrington office. Sorry, not the Manchester office. The Warrington office is over here, and it's a stupid long walk, kind of an annoying faff, and it's like up here. It's really badly connected by public transport, and you connect up with Birchwood, and there's like one train in rush hour. It's useless. I mean, that's possibly an exaggeration. Maybe there's two. Ooh. But it's just a useless station. And to get to it, if you're going to a meeting outside of peak time, it's even worse. It's like a train every 2 hours. It's completely useless. That's the sort of train that there should be a train there every sort of 8 minutes. You know, it's a major area with like retail and commercial. It's just doolally. Anyway, I'm coming into, so that's a similar story up here. Coming in, and then you start tunnelling, and you'd have a tunnel approach into Lime Street, and then you'd have new tunnelled underground platforms, I think. I don't think you could do anything else through here. It's too busy. So that is the Transpennine link. It's 1947. Right, while you're in here, I need a folding bike. Yeah, it's true. Could I make this episode an extended edition so I can talk about Wetherby? I was hoping to keep this one tight. We'll see. It might be that I just need to do another episode. Tell me whether you want me to do... yeah, it's fine. No one watches RailNatter, right? So no one's going to... No one important watches this and is going to send me emails shouting at me for showing you potential Northern Powerhouse Rail alignments, right? Right, let's go northwards. So, combined with that, my other proposal is, like, the East Coast Main Line, north of Northallerton, is stupid, right? It's stupid. Durham is... sorry, this is Darlow. Darlow is fine. It's kind of fairly all right to Darlow. Then north of Darlington, it's absolutely pants. Very weavy. And as a result of the fact that it's quite busy, it doesn't serve lots of urban areas that it could. You know, like... Could be serving. There are several places that should have stations on the East Coast Main Line that can't because it's too busy. You know, Chesterley Street. How many trains call it Chesterley Street? Not nearly enough. Anyway, so what's my proposal to fix that? My proposal to fix that, also, you know, one of the largest urban areas not on a mainline railway, because I'm sorry, it's not on a mainline railway. Teesside, you know, Borough, Stockton, Thornaby, this massive urban area here that's entirely detached from the mainline railway network. So my proposal is to actually build a new East Coast Main Line, a bit like Trent Valley lines around Birmingham, build a new East Coast Main Line alignment that would have a minimum number of stations. In fact, I would just have one here, actually. And then at Thornaby, which would act as the sort of hub for the whole area. So you'd have Thornaby as the hub. Rather than Stockton or Middlesbrough, you'd pen it into Thornaby, and then you'd have like S-train services dialing out. And also connecting up to Darlow as well, to Darlington. Anyway, right, I'll show you this then, shall we? What's the difference between this slightly longer tunnel into the Wirral? Well, indeed. Could you have a high-speed station in Sunderland too? It'd be great for Sunderland. Well, as a Sunderland person, you'd think that it potentially... I mean, you could it would involve more. And so when I did this, and I might change it, you know, in hindsight, I might change it and say, like, actually, but the thing is, at that point, you end up with a kink and a bit of an operational challenge in. So potentially, yes, actually, you know, Wearside, Sunderland, it's where a quarter of me is from Sunderland. Potentially, yeah, but it just becomes more complex, I think. So that's why I hadn't done it. But, you know, I did this alignment a very, very long time ago. So if I followed my top 7 rules, potentially I would plumb Sunderland in. It just becomes more construction and more urban construction, I think. So, exploiting the existing flying junctions through Northallerton, I'm whizzing off along the Yarm lines, except that I would propose to 4-track this. I would propose it be a 4-track alignment. You can see I'm snipping off a corner there to get the speed. But following the Yarm alignment, happy days, because the Yarm alignment is pretty good, actually. But I split off from said Yarm alignment and go and join the A19. So before I get to Yarm, splitting off, leaving Yarm, that line to it. I mean, you wouldn't necessarily need to segregate if the trains running on both lines were of about similar performance. So if it was if all the Yarm trains were electrified, which they should be anyway, and they were capable of 125 miles an hour, then it wouldn't necessarily be a problem if they were running. You could have this as 2-track because you wouldn't necessarily, as long as there's not a station being built along here. Then you can just flight them and it wouldn't necessarily be the end of the world. But if you want to completely segregate operationally, if you want to reduce the headache of having the resilient, you know, if you want better timetable resilience, then you'd segregate them. Anyway, so then at this point I'm splitting off and following the A19, which has an insane. The A19 is insane. Between Thirsk and well, basically between the A1M and like Borough, the A19 is just like a racetrack. It's bonkers. That's what you get if you're in marginal constituencies, folks. Overly built roads, massively overbuilt roads. Anyway, so that cuts up through and then follows sort of in some of the Greenland through, and then it gets, because it's basically every train would stop here, you can do slightly snazzy things. So you'd portal here, you'd burrow down. I don't know the geology, so I don't know how realistic this would be, but my proposal would be that you'd have, a bit like Old Oak Common, you'd end up with building a big sort of transport. So this is Thornaby Station, which is quite pokey. I do use it quite a lot to catch the train back to York if I've cycled over Chop Gate. But you could build a big Old Oak Common style. There's a nice roundhouse there. Look at that. Isn't that lovely? Look at that. Fantastic. Big hub station here. So well wound in. You'd have you'd divert the kind of the existing suburban services would come through here. You build a nice station, and it would have to be sufficiently low to get underneath the T's. So that the geological practicalities of that, I don't know. You can achieve anything with a sufficient budget and sufficient engineering now. So that would be my proposal. Whether that ends up, whether that actually is totally impractical, I don't know. But that would be what I'd do. So with East Coast Mainline high-speed rail, put a bypass around Western Newcastle. No, everything goes through Newcastle. Newcastle's a big place. Everything goes through there. So you wouldn't. Anyway, so coming north of here, you're climbing up, and actually I'm finding an old railway alignment again. But I think this might. I don't know what point I'd portal this back out into the real world again, having been tunneled up. It would then come along here on this alignment. It's actually diverging a bit here because of reasons. I can't remember why. I think I turned that into one straight. That's probably a bit of a cock up on my part. Actually, the alignment should be slightly curved to follow the existing tracks here, or you'd 4-track it or whatever. Or maybe you'd borrow. The other thing, of course, you could do is you could portal it again and go underneath here and then whiz out, bulldoze this golf course and get through here and this weird housing estate here. Goodness knows, with their red paving. A little bit strange, isn't it? Is that like Passive House or something? Is it all like snazzy? It doesn't look like it. It looks like standard British. Oh look, I'm a cottage houses. Oh, never mind. Anyway, either we do a Mexborough on them, or probably better to just sort of work your way through in an alternative manner without bulldozing anything. Anyway, so coming through here, this is entirely greenfield. What am I bulldozing here? I'm definitely bulldozing something there, aren't I? It's just not showing me. I'll make this orange again, actually. Where am I? Let's go up here. Sorry, everyone. And properties, and just make this FF6600. Lovely. And altitude, I'll just put this 20 meters above the ground so you sort of see it. There we go. So whatever that is gone. Cheerio. Sorry to those stables, business, whatever. We can, we'll work these things out, but it's just, this is just me. This is broadly me providing a higher speed alignment. So then I'm cutting in So there's some forest impact there, not ideal. Trying to follow field boundaries because that minimises land purchase, but you can see I'm actually now joining up with and paralleling an old railway line, but briefly, and then disappearing off it again. Well, you can see I'm disappearing off it just because it kinks a bit, but I can't remember what line this is, but there's so many railway lines around this part of the world for mining and stuff. Whizzing off it, then rejoining it again, and then I think, sort of still broadly following it. And then we've cut away from it at this point onto Greenfield again. Very much Greenfield at this point. This is more interesting. How we deal with that wind turbine is probably a bit of a laugh. More forest. So you can see this is it's more rural, more complicated. Whizzing through, that'd probably be a tunnel because I think the elevation's quite high there. So you'd go through that, or you'd excavate, cut and cover. Again, trying to follow field boundaries. What's that? We're whizzing over it's the old Leam side. That doesn't actually exist anymore, really. And then we're cutting through, rejoining the A1M, or kind of coming parallel to the A1M to an extent, crossing it. But my proposal would be at this point, you'd portal it. So you'd go over the top of the what is that? Is that the Weir? Yeah, it is. You'd go over the top of the River Weir, and then you'd scoop straight into a portal and then whiz off under Nislot, and then pop out again by the time you're joining the East Coast Main Line again. So you're whizzing along the East Coast Main Line, and at this point, basically, you tie back into the East Coast Main Line, and then happy days. So that's what that is. That is my thing. The Wellfield line, Barry Jones is suggesting. Oh, cheerio, Graham. Pleasure to have you. Oh no, Eurostar Lover 009 is up. Graham's just saying bye. Yeah, it could be the Wellfield line, actually. There's quite a lot of bits and pieces around there. Anyway, so that's that. That was my proposal for a new East Coast Main Line set of fast lines, basically. Share your thoughts. And it is 1956. Are we going to find... So you know what? And I've promised some Wetherby action. Maybe we'll have a look, but we'll save this for another time. I won't make it as long next time, so it'll only maybe be a few episodes down the line. But I definitely want to... Speedy thing goes in, speedy thing comes out. Yeah, precisely, Roman Adocrat. Anyway, that's my thoughts. And basically, because this is a huge urban area with a lot of brownfield, a lot of potential, and I have a huge soft spot for everyone in Teesside, and the whole region is... just like this whole urban area has the potential to be massively kind of, if it was better served by public transport, it's like the growth potential, the potential of this is huge. Lots of high-tech industry potential. Yeah, lot of time for that part of the country, and it's just a forgotten bit of the world because it's not on the main, because it's not either on the A1M or on the East Coast Main Line. It's a bit of the world that Britain forgets about, and we shouldn't. Anyway, that's that. How do you deal with the curvature of the platforms at Newcastle Station? Well, thankfully, HS2 is fixing that anyway. HS2 is doing a load of work at Newcastle. Newcastle's getting massively rebuilt for HS2, so that problem sort of solves itself. And actually, there are a lot of major plans for the East Coast Main Line at this end anyway, and some of it is talking about this sort of thing. I don't think they've been as radical as I have here, but they are talking about some bypasses, some work to improve, because the East Coast Main Line is very full, and it's a major constraint. So anyway, that was all that. There you go. Let's turn off all of those many things and turn on this thing, which is a massive unsorted folder of former railway alignments. Where are we? There we are. Because I think this is Wetherby. Yeah, here we are. Here's Wetherby. This is Wetherby, and this is where I was going to... actually, because I cycled there over the weekend. It was really nice. This bit of railway is basically all cycle paths. Quite nice. And this bit over the wharf is lovely. Actually, I didn't actually look at what... sad times, it's not 3D, so I can't see. Right, put your votes in for... I know you all want me to just run on long, but I'm quite hungry and I want to go and eat, and I think it'd be better to not rush it. I'd like to take our time over the Wetherby thing. So who is... where can I find more info on what HS2 is doing at Newcastle? Google it. I think it's on the HS2 website, but there's quite a bit of information on the Network Rail website about the future plans for Newcastle as well. Right, so... Everyone's missing Wetherby. Well, either literally or metaphorically missing the Wetherby, what we're going to do. I think we're going to save the Wetherby bit for next time. If you're upset about this but understand and want me to eat, say so in the chat now. So we have these existing lines, but the trouble with the existing lines is that they're basically, and this is a prelude to what we're going to talk about momentarily, by the way. So if I shove the slides back. So that was TransPennine lines. I've done the ECML via Teesside. Then we're going to say, let's get drawing. Well, actually, we're not going to do drawing this time, I'm afraid, because it's an hour. And we're going to do another hour. And it's just going to be Wetherby. I promise. It'll just be doing Crayonista. Yeah, so the trouble with the existing lines is that they are basically uselessly located operationally. Like, this skirts too far away from any urban area to be much use, other than just linking to Wetherby, which is not much good. Some potential, Collingham Bridge Station maybe, and Bardsley. But yeah, okay, so some Thorner, but not ideal. So there's some problems. And the other thing is that the main line, the old main line that went northwards, is just uselessly located for operationally, because what you want to be doing is connecting Wetherby to York and Leeds. You want a line connecting York and Leeds, but there is no option to do that. So basically, this is where just because there was an existing line there before doesn't mean you should reinstate it rule comes to play, because I don't think if you're going to reattach Wetherby to the railway network and kind of run services through it, I think you'd do something different. So it could be quite interesting to look at what those options are. Anyway, people are asking me about the Coventry Very Light Rail. Yes, you know what? So that's quite. So Wetherby, it's off. We're going to do it next time. I'm so sorry, everyone, but an hour has passed and it's time for grub. So I'm going to go to Big Face because hello. Chop me your questions. Another episode would be fine. People are saying it's fine. Crayonista number 4. Tram Metro stuff is really a genre unto itself. The trouble with Tram Metro stuff, I've done some design on that recently, so my knowledge is increasing, but it's outside some of my knowledge actually. So I was like, if I was going to do it, I need to get an expert on, I think. In any case, right, so it would be interesting to look at for number 4. Certainly like DLR-based stuff is interesting. Opratetse is saying, hey Gareth, are you planning to talk about Coventry Very Light Rail? I saw the finished vehicle at a showcase in the city centre today, and I remember you mentioning it in a video. Yeah, I want to get someone on to talk about it, because for me it's still jury's out as to whether it's a good idea or not, but because it's using steel wheels, steel rails, it's not, to my mind, it's not a gadget ban. It's just an interesting, it's one step down from, it's actually light rail rather than trams, which is actually not so much light rail. It's medium capacity systems actually they're not really light rail. They're a step beyond that. So yeah, from my perspective, cheers John Christoph, cheerio. From my perspective, I think it could be, it's an interesting option. I'm interested to look at it, but it certainly shouldn't be seen. It's one step down, not one step up from. One step down, not one step up from trams, from MCSs, LRT as they're often slightly confusingly called. Right, yeah, everyone's saying that we should do it next time, and you're right, Matt Reed. I will do a little bit of Wetherby railway history next time, and I'll tie it in and talk about Wetherby and talk about when it wasn't on the rail network anymore, and maybe that'll be our case study. We'll do a Crayonista case study, and that'll be the next episode. Hashtag Brabin for mayor. Yes, good point, Alfonso Lepulce. Right, anyway, to Wetherby or not to Wetherby, that is the question. Well, indeed. I am going to, if you've got any questions, chuck them in, but I'm going to bring up the endy bits. So let's go no face again. Yes, we are available on basically anywhere you can get podcasts. Rail Natter is now available. So do that. If you are a listener and you have been listening, I hope this format works. This is a particularly stretchy format in terms of whether it works in audio only, I don't know, but hopefully it's not too bad. I get updates from certain people who say whether episodes are bad or not in audio only, and generally they seem to be all right, so that's good. Next is for me to say, oh, my voice is going. Actually, I'm going to have some water before it catastrophically disintegrates. Yes, good questions. Keep sending them through. Patreon. Please do consider going on to Patreon and supporting me, because it makes more of this nonsense happen. You can tell me what you want me to do in episodes, and you get to appear on random episodes apparently as well, which was good fun when that happened a few weeks ago. So patreon.com/GarethDennis. Please do go in, have a link, have a look, have a laugh at the tiers system in there. And you can give as little as you like. They're no like, you can give me, as some of you do, you can donate large amounts of money a month, which I'm very grateful for, but you get no additional benefit other than personal satisfaction. But if you donate, £1 a month, you get all the same benefits. So it's not pricey, it's like literally £1 a month, but everyone's asking for £1 a month, so I don't mind if you don't support me, but I feel very sheepish on these things. But yes, do, because it allows more of this to happen. The Discord link is back. Go in and join I don't know if the Discord server, now I've put the link up, if it's now been mobbed again, but I think we've increased the security level. And it might be that we increase it to verified status people only. I don't know, but we're working on the security of that because some nasties tried to come in and bomb it. But it's back. The link is back. Do come and get involved in the community, the Discord community. So it's GarethDennis.co.uk/Discord. And if you don't want to do any of that, but you just fancy chucking me loose change because you're lovely, then you can do that at paypal.me/GarethDennis as well. And indeed, thanks for your support. So, on to the ads before I go to questions. Here it is, Haringworth Viaduct, or the Welland Valley Viaduct. I did surveys on this for like 2 weeks. And a lot of those were spent in very misty evenings, by which I mean 4 a.m. and or earlier, and it was pitch black and very misty. And for most of the length along the valley, I couldn't see the valley floor, so I could see like ahead and behind, but I couldn't actually see the floor of the valley, which was it's it's really quite ethereal, and it's stunning. It's just this huge structure that just sort of appears with all these sort of is it Bedfordshire? No, it's Rutland, isn't it? Sort of these sort of bits of England that most people don't know anything about because it's not hugely interesting, but it's very pleasant and verdant. It's very English looking, right? So nothing hugely commendable, but just very pleasant. Some nice pubs and all sorts of nice. But anyway, this incredible viaduct stands through as this wonderful feature, just absolutely spectacular, and it's hilariously patchy. Like the brickwork is really patchy because it it is and has been maintained in very patchy form over the years. Anyway. The reason I put this picture up is because it was in Tim's show, and it was a fantastic final episode of the Architecture the Railways built last night. So go watch it, catch up, and show Tim your support for it. And there's Series 3 coming up, which Tim has already said to you that I'm in, so you can look forward to that one. What am I covering though? Ooh. And some other people who are in Series 3, which I can't tell you about because they haven't been teased. But Series 3 is happening. And also, Secrets of the London Underground is another new series with City Holloway, which is going to be good fun as well. Back from, I think, the first episode of Rail Matter, actually, from Rail Matter, for the Architecture the Railways built from a long time ago. Yeah, anyway. Next week, we are stretching the format and the technology to their limits. Ella, you're going to be getting pestered by me big time because we have 2 guests on. We have Alistair Baldwin and Kelly Shuttleworth from the Institute for Government talking about how governments use evidence to make transport policy, or in the case of the UK, don't use evidence to make transport policy, or indeed just don't make transport policy at all. So that should be an interesting one. How much will they feel uncomfortable by me shouting about the Treasury? Tune in next week to find out. So this should be an interesting episode, I think. It's going to be another PDF page turn. We're just going to page turn their report, but with the authors with us. So they'll pick out the things that they think are important and relevant in each page, and we'll see how it goes. And we'll try and keep it to within an hour. But it's a very interesting document and worth chewing through. So that should be fantastic. I'm looking forward to it. Right, there were some questions, so I'm going to answer those with my giant face appearing again. Hello, everyone. Oh, by the way, the corporate identity manual is moving down a shelf, so it's going to be level with this one, so that you can see it. I have plans. Unfortunately, I screwed the IKEA book thing in, so I have to do a bit of unscrewing and faffing. But anyway, right. Let's go through these questions. With a bit of Wetherby history, yep. Bit of whole episode on Wetherby, past, present, and future. Well, I'll do it as a Crayonista episode, but it'll be a Wetherby special, right? Here we go, right? 2007, right? Yeah. Would HS2 continue to Glasgow, Edinburgh work, and what should it look like? Says Eddie Owen. Well, HS2 will go up to Glasgow and Edinburgh from day one. It'll run off phase 1, phase 2A up onto the West Coast Main Line, head up to Edinburgh and Glasgow. But there's an acknowledgement that there's a lot of work that needs to be done on not just north of the border, but also south of the border. And Transport Scotland are actually looking at plans to do upgrades even south of the Scottish border to enable a 3-hour journey time between London and Edinburgh and Glasgow. And there's an acknowledgement that major work needs to be done. Just as I talked about the Scottish Greens report, there's an acknowledgement there's a major amount of work that needs to be done, not just on the approaches, but also Glasgow Central needs to expand to enable, not just in terms of platform numbers, but also in the platform length to enable potentially 400 metre, but even 200 metre trains pulling in. So lots of work to be done. Similar Edinburgh, the approaches to Edinburgh from the west are absolutely clogged, so lots of work to be done. David Shepherd, are there disused railways that point at each other that would make possible good choices for lower land purchase costs? I mean, you have to judge it by every case is different. If you can use, the chances are in a lot of cases the existing railway line is as complicated legally to buy that back as it is a greenfield bit of land. Potentially, if you've got buildings built up next to the old railway, it's actually even easier to pick greenfield land. So they're just not that not always that useful. It doesn't mean, if you can use an existing line, then great. Matt Reed, I am going to go and eat momentarily. Don't worry, I'm just answering some questions while I'm here. Opertezza, it is going to triple capacity on the bus routes, apparently, because it's going to run so frequently. So it's something, because buses in Coventry are so overcrowded at the hospital. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the Coventry system up and running. It is higher frequency than bus, but it's also more intense. Like, it's as much the segregation that achieves that. So... But it's, we'll see. Tim did say beaching reversal yesterday, and the klaxon went off in my head. What else have we got? David Shepard doing Secrets at London Underground. Yeah, that'll be good. Where are we? What are the questions? James Potts. It does seem mad that HS2 Western Leg doesn't just go into Manchester and then go up to Glasgow, Scotland. Absolutely, yes. Do you know why they have went for a sort of halfway house alignment? Lack of imagination. Trying to cut costs. Trying to basically emulate the existing service patterns without having an imagination of what a network... ultimately, not having a total overall future strategy is probably the issue. If they'd had the strategy of this will go to Scotland, what would the ideal railway network look like? Well, not basically just emulating the existing West Coast Main Line, but having it go straight through Manchester. Geology is complicated north of Manchester, don't get me wrong. Have I seen the new Scottish National Transport Strategy? Any thoughts? Says Rad CJO. No, I haven't. I need to dive into that, I think. Thoughts on making HS2's Y shape into an X by connecting to New Street and down south to Bristol? All I can say on that is this. Let me just do this and also switch this off. All I can say to that is, yeah. I think that this picture here, ignore that's the Great Central. Don't worry about that. That's something different entirely, separate entirely. Ignore that. What's untitled there? I don't know what that is. Anyway, yes, is the answer. Absolutely, I do. And I've been investigating different options and routes and how you'd go across the Severn, but you definitely need a new Severn tunnel as part of that. Anyway, you can't see that because I'm on big face. Let me go back to small face and also do this. This should give you the answer. There we are. That's how I feel about HS2 being a... actually, it's almost like a dancing... It's like the dancing meme person, actually, because they've got... Once you've got the NPR in, and then you've got that bit, all of a sudden it starts looking like a different shape entirely, but absolutely it should be an X, and I've kind of got ideas about what that should look like already. Anyway, let's get rid of my face again, and... actually, let's go big face again, and I remember to turn my cursor off. Yeah, very good point. I'll do that shortly. I've seen the Scottish National Transport Strategy. Any thoughts? No, I've done that already. Mouse cursor. Couldn't use high-speed rail routes in Scotland. Used tunnels to avoid limestone, possibly. But again, you judge that by location and by design. Anyway, right, that's enough of that. All I can say is, having done that chat, is to say cheerio, folks. It's been a pleasure. Cheerio. I'm only 12 minutes late. Oh. Cheerio, everyone. Have a good evening. I'll see you on Friday for streaming, and I'll see you on Monday for streaming, and I'll see you on Wednesday for more Rail Natter. Cheerio!